Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Yamanatira Vanam Chadi Yamanatira Vanam Chadi Jaya Raja Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Jamunatira Vanam Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jayom Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Astatarasatasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaura Premanandi.
Hare Krishna everyone, and welcome to this week's Sunday feast here at the home of Sri Sri Kishore Kishori, and on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, a big welcome to everyone joining virtually. As before, the temple remains closed until further notice due to the COVID situation, and we'll definitely send an update as more becomes clear. Brief announcement before continuing on with our speaker this evening, His Holiness Romapada Swami. The 2021 calendars, well, big Happy New Year to everybody, and the 2021 ISKCON Chicago calendars, there's still a few available for purchase through the ISKCON Chicago websites, and shipping is included, so you can have the 2021 ISKCON Chicago calendar shipped to your door. So please take advantage of that opportunity. Also, a reminder to everybody that there is daily online japa sessions from 5 a.m. until 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. And that link is available through the ISKCON Chicago email. If you don't receive that already, send a quick message in the chat and we can get you signed up. Finally, I'll turn it over to our speaker tonight, who's going to be continuing our Brilliant as the Sun series with an overview of Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd Canto, 2nd Chapter, focusing on remembrance.
For those of you that may not know, the Brilliant as the Sun series or seminar, whatever the word he used, that's reference to a verse from Canto 1 Srimad Bhagavatam. Some of you may not be familiar. In that verse, it's the very end of Canto 1 Chapter 3, and it's one of the answers to the 6 questions of the sages. That's Shaunaka and the sages that were assembled at Naimisharanya to hear from Sutta Goswami. And one of those questions was, now that Krishna has departed, because the Bhagavatam was spoken shortly after Krishna's departure, now that Krishna's no longer with us on earth, his presence was creating auspiciousness on earth, where will religious principles take shelter now? Because Krishna gave protection to Dharma and stopped adharma. Pritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam. So Krishna's gone. Where will religious principles take shelter now? And the answer was Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's a poetic image, just as the moon rising on the eastern horizon with rays that are very soothing. So similarly, this Bhagavatam has arisen shortly after the departure of Lord Krishna, but its rays are brilliant like the sun, soothing like the moon. Because when Krishna was present, he killed the demons. And the Bhagavatam doesn't kill demons. It's a literature, it's a sound vibration. But it very soothingly eradicates demoniac mentality and restores devotional mentality suited for this age of Kali. Brilliant as the sun, illuminating the darkness of this dark age of Kali. It's certainly a dark age. And the section that we'll be reading from and discussing is one of my favorite sections, just very truthfully and honestly, one of my favorite sections of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. Because it's about Krishna, and the person who's speaking about Krishna is Krishna's dearmost friend outside of Vrindavan, Uddhava. The position of Uddhava in itself is a very wonderful topic. The personalities of Krishna's pastimes are all very wonderful, and Uddhava is very wonderful amongst the very wonderful associates. Uddhava was a direct cousin. Like Arjuna was a cousin, Uddhava was a cousin. The father of Krishna had a sister and a brother. He had more than one brother. Devabhaga was one of his brothers, and Uddhava was his son, Vasudev's brother. So they were first cousins. And Vasudev's sister was Arjuna's mother. So they were first cousins. And we know how dear is Arjuna, right? We can say his dearmost friend, but we could also say Uddhava is his dearmost friend, not just because they're cousins. But we hear about Uddhava. He was nearly the same age as Krishna, even looked like Krishna. His form was of the same complexion as Krishna. He dressed like Krishna. He was, from childhood, he was immersed in Krishna. From when he was a small boy, he had deities of Krishna. And he was with his deities of Krishna all day long. And he would tell stories about Krishna. He dressed Krishna, make offerings to Krishna. He was Krishna, Krishna, Krishna all the way, from a little boy. And it didn't change throughout his whole life. When we find that Krishna, after he was 12 years old, or around 12 years old, he went from Vrindavan to Mathura. And guess who was there to be his friend? Uddhava. And when it was time, because Krishna made a promise to the gopis, and Krishna made a promise to Nanda Maharaj that he would return. But Krishna was concerned. His Leela was. He was concerned that if he left Mathura, those that were friends of Kamsa would come and attack the residents of Mathura because Krishna wasn't there to protect them. 12-year-old boy. So he didn't want to leave Mathura, and he didn't want to go to Vrindavan either, because if he went to Vrindavan, then the demons would understand the residents of Vrindavan are very dear to Krishna, let's go harass them. Because demons are like that. So he felt, let me first slay all the demons, and then I'll go to Vrindavan, which is what he did. According to Jiva Goswami, in Padma Purana, it says that after Dantavakra was killed, Shishupal and Dantavakra were killed, Krishna went to Vrindavan again and was reunited with the residents of Vrindavan. It's not described extensively in the Bhagavatam at all. It is described extensively in another literature, Gopal Champu, very wonderful, very fascinating literature written by Jiva Goswami describing what those 2 months, what Krishna did during those 2 months. But Uddhava, so instead Krishna didn't go to Vrindavan, he sent Uddhava. And it was multi-purpose. Everything Krishna does is achieving many things at the same time. But one of them was to give Uddhava the opportunity to experience the kind of love of the residents of Vrindavan, because outside of Vrindavan, Uddhava, even more than Arjuna or anyone else, Uddhava was most intimate with Krishna. And he wanted Uddhava, and very intelligent, not just, he read a lot or had wisdom. He was superlatively intelligent. It was one of his opulences. But he didn't, with all of that intelligence, he didn't know or didn't understand, as he could from first-hand experience, what is the kind of love of the residents of Vrindavan. So he sent Uddhava for that reason. Another was to pacify the gopis, so he was carrying a letter to the gopis. And the letter to the gopis did something to satisfy the hearts of the gopis, but it just turned Radharani mad. Not angry, but she went mad. The song to the bumblebee is a nice section of the Bhagavatam. When You know that section, right? You familiar? Yes? You're nodding. Is that a yes, or you don't know, or? Are you familiar with that section of the Bhagavatam? No. Okay. Radharani, there's beautiful paintings. Over here is Uddhava, who looks just like Krishna, dressed like Krishna, looks like everything Krishna, reading a letter from Krishna to the gopis, and they're all, ooh, ah, ooh, except for Radharani. And Radharani is pictured over here, and she's talking to a bumblebee. Saying, get out of here. You're an unreliable messenger of an unreliable master, and she says very heavy things. Talking to the bumblebee as if the bumblebee was Uddhava, who's the messenger of Krishna. Get out. Don't come near me. And then the bumblebee flies away, and she goes, no, don't tell Krishna all those things. I know what he's like, but I'm uncontrollably attached to him. Please don't say those things. Maybe he'll never come. Don't. So she's just moved by a mad Mahabhav, it's called. Extraordinary deep love. So Uddhava sees all that. And as far as Uddhava is concerned, the residents of Vrindavan are out of this world. And topmost of all the residents of Vrindavan, confirming everything that we have an understanding of in Gaudiya line, but Uddhava is this most learned person. He's not just like, a sentimental guy. He is very learned, and he understands how exalted is the love of the gopis. So he offers a prayer to Krishna that he would like to become, in his next life, a blade of grass. Well, actually, he would really like is dust from the feet. Was that your phone? Is it like an alarm? Someone's trying to break in? Okay, well, he'll find out. He knows what it is. Okay, so back to Vrindavan. For people online, you must be wondering what's going on here. Somebody's car alarm is alarming, making some sound, so we're trying to sort that out. Back to Vrindavan. Yeah, so Uddhava wanted to become he wanted the dust from the gopis' feet. But he reasoned, if I ask them for dust from their feet, they'll be too shy and ashamed and bashful, and so I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. But if I could become, in my next life, I could become a blade of grass, that would be great. Then I could get dust from their feet, and my life can be made perfect. The dust from the feet of the gopis is everything. You know the pastime, probably you all know the pastime, of Mother Jasoda being told by Balaram and the cowherd boys that Krishna ate dirt. Do you know that pastime? Your son knows that pastime? No? The cowherd boys, look at me, the cowherd boys, they're like 3 years old, right? And they said, Mother Jasoda, Krishna ate dirt. And Mother Jasoda, she's a mother. My son ate dirt. What? So she came and she asked Krishna, did you eat dirt? And he said, they're liars. I didn't eat dirt. And she said, well, if you haven't eaten dirt, then you open your mouth and let me see if you ate dirt. So he opened his mouth. And you know what Mother Jasoda saw inside Krishna's mouth? What? You saw his teeth?
No, he saw like the whole world.
The whole universe, right?
Yeah.
Well, according to one of our acharyas, she saw all the universes, many, many universes. And this particular acharya said, just see the mercy of the dust of Vrindavan. When Krishna ate dust of Vrindavan, it expanded in his mouth as universes. How powerful, how potent, how merciful is the dust of Vrindavan. So Uddhava wanted some dust of Vrindavan, the dust of the feet of the residents of Vrindavan, to land on his grass body. So not this coming weekend, but the weekend following, I'm going to give a seminar for the West Coast people from Portland and so on Govardhan Parikrama. And we're going to visit that place where Uddhava did his austerities. There's a temple where he underwent austerities to become a blade of grass. And he became a blade of grass. That's described on the other side, Uddhava Kund. So, Uddhava has such love for Krishna. He understood Krishna as best as any living being can understand Krishna. He understood him from the opulence side. He understood him from the sweetness side. Most elevated soul. So elevated that when after Krishna visited Vrindavan, after Krishna killed Shishupal and Dantavakra, Krishna sent the eternal associates of Krishna, the Goloka Vrindavan residents, back to Goloka. And the aprakat lila, the unmanifest forms of those personalities remained in Vrindavan, but unseen to the world. And Krishna went to Dwarka to make arrangements for the residents of Dwarka to depart. When Krishna returned to Dwarka, Uddhava, being so intimately connected with Krishna, he understood he's going to leave. And he was in total anxiety, crying and weeping and wailing, and fell at Krishna's feet. And Krishna gave him wonderful instructions found in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam called Uddhava Gita. And Krishna concludes by saying, now you have this wonderful association, and you'll always be able to associate with me by remembering me. And that connects with canto 3. So that's in canto 11. But back in canto 3, Krishna has already departed. He left the world. He finished his pastimes. And he sent Uddhava from Dwarka. He sent Uddhava to go to where the associates of Narayan Rishi are, to give his teachings to them, because he had not given his association to them during his pastimes. He gave him some service to keep him alive, in other words. And Uddhava got as far as Vrindavan, and he happened to meet up with who? Who did he meet in the forest of Vrindavan? Vidura. So chapter 1, which was covered at the Chicago Temple program on Sunday last week, is Vidura, who was on pilgrimage, and he went to Vrindavan, and there he met Uddhava. Uddhava! Fancy meeting you here in Vrindavan! And just by seeing Uddhava, he remembered Krishna. And he started asking him all kinds of Krishna questions. And that's where the chapter ended. And now it's chapter 2. I'll read. When the great devotee Uddhava was asked by Vidura to speak on the messages of the dearest Lord Krishna, Uddhava was unable to answer immediately due to excessive anxiety at the remembrance of the Lord. No, he had just departed, and Uddhava was in anxiety. He was one who even in his childhood, at the age of 5 years, was so absorbed in the service of Lord Krishna that when he was called by his mother for morning breakfast, he did not wish to have it. Those of you that are mothers that have had 5-year-old sons, and it's time for breakfast, and they're too absorbed in Krishna activity to have breakfast. Not so likely. But that was Uddhava, and it was like that for his life. Uddhava thus served the Lord continually from childhood, and in his old age that attitude of service never slackened. As soon as he was asked about the message of the Lord, he at once remembered all about him. Not only he remembered all about him, and he was silent, he actually went into a stage of trance. Samadhi. He lost external consciousness. Just by hearing questions about Krishna, topics about Krishna. For a moment he remained dead silent, and his body did not move. He became absorbed in the nectar of remembering the Lord's lotus feet in devotional ecstasy, and he appeared to be going increasingly deeper into that ecstasy. In that ecstasy, there's a stage, or it's described in Nectar Devotion, or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He was exhibiting bodily symptoms of bhava. Bhava is a stage before prema, but he was already at prema stage. But the intensification of thought of Krishna just by hearing questions and topics about Krishna. Tears, shivering of the body, perspiration, restlessness, throbbing, choking of the throat, hairs standing on end. They were all manifest in the body of Uddhava. And Vidura's watching this transformation going, wow. I mean, Vidura is very elevated. When Krishna went to Hastinapur to try to arrange for a peace with the Kauravas, he refused to stay at the Kauravas' home or to eat meals at their home. He said, there's only one person in all of Hastinapur that's fit for me to stay and have meals at, and that's Vidura. So he went to Vidura's home, and he took meal at Vidura's home, even it was very simple. Krishna's not interested in something fancy. He's interested in love and devotion. If love and devotion can be elaborately and gorgeously offered, fantastic. But what Krishna is interested in is the love and devotion with which whatever it is that's offered to him. So Vidura had that. And he was also, not only he was dear to Krishna, but he was very wise, and everybody knew it. Everybody knew it. Even Dhritarashtra knew it, and Dhritarashtra would regularly receive counsel from him, but when it came to detaching from Duryodhana and his wickedness, Dhritarashtra couldn't do it. He was too attached. But he always had regard for Vidura. So there's Vidura seeing Uddhava getting lost in samadhi. just adhering the topic of Krishna. Vidura could understand that Uddhava had completely assimilated extensive love for the Lord. I'll read a little from the purport. The symptoms of the highest order of devotional life were observed by Vidura, himself an experienced devotee of the Lord, and he confirmed Uddhava's perfectional stage of love of Godhead. Ecstatic bodily changes are manifested from the spiritual plane and are not artificial expressions developed by practice. There are persons that try to develop those symptoms by practice. You want to hear a little Prabhupada story? Here's a Prabhupada story. 1974 or maybe 75, a few years ago. The Mayapur temple had just been completed, and we're having a Mayapur festival. Devotees from around the world had come, and as was the practice, there was the whole morning program and the after morning program, breakfast, and then there were different activities to do. So I happened to be this one morning after breakfast. There's a little park by the side of the Lotus building, and I was just chanting japa by the park, within the park, and you could hear in the temple room it was a kirtan. It was really loud kirtaniyas. They weren't ISKCON devotees. They were other people that came with their musical instruments. And it sounded like a nice kirtan. And I saw up on the second floor, for us it's the second floor balcony, Prabhupada came and he heard the kirtan. He came to the balcony and he ordered his servant, throw them out. He could tell just by the quality of the kirtan. So what happened is the kirtan got to a certain kind of frenzy, and then they started rolling around the ground and wailing and crying. There was a Hajiyas, right in the temple room in front of Radhamadava. So, this strong American fellow and his other sannyasi friends went and escorted the people out of the temple room. And as they were walking, I saw them walking out of the temple room, they started smoking bidis. So they're imitating symptoms of ecstasy by practice, or however, rolling and wailing and. But that wasn't Uddhava. Uddhava was the genuine expressions of ecstasy. Says, Prabhupada writes, these different stages of gradual development of increased love of God to the highest stage, and in the highest stage there are still more symptoms such as affection, anger, and attachment, gradually rising in exceptional stages to the Mahabhava stage. That's Radharani, what she was doing, talking to the bumblebee, which is generally not possible for the living entities. All of these were manifested by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the personification of love of God. So then next, text number 6, Canto 3, Chapter 2, Text 6. The great devotee Uddhava soon came back from the abode of the Lord to the human plane, and wiping his eyes, he awakened his reminiscence of the past and spoke to Vidura in a pleasing mood. Now he lost external consciousness by not just deep meditation on the Lord, but specifically the verse says, and the commentary further explains, he actually was with Krishna. His body was there, and his soul was with Krishna, steeped in intense reminiscence of Krishna. That's the title of the chapter. Remembering Lord Krishna. Remembrance of Lord Krishna. So it was very profound. He was samadhi. He lost external consciousness, and his internal consciousness he was with Krishna. And then, but he was asked the Krishna question by Vidura, who is elder. And a cultured person is always going to respect an elder. And so he wanted to reciprocate with Vidura's request. Topics of Krishna, please. So he struggled and struggled and struggled to come back down to the physical plane to do some service for Vidura. Kind of usually works the other way. You struggle and struggle to be connected to Krishna. But his mood of service was so strong, and attachment to Krishna and serving the devotees of Krishna, that he wanted to do some service for Vidura. Pretty amazing. And so when he came to external consciousness, he began speaking. I'm going to read a few of the verses. You'll see why I love this section when you hear the verses. He is describing something not so dissimilar from what we've been hearing in Brahma's prayers. That's, the divinity of Krishna, the transcendental nature of Krishna's appearance and activities. Uddhava understands it. So he goes through some of those standard things of understanding the transcendental nature of Krishna's appearance and activities. And then it gets really interesting. He, Uddhava, sees Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it pains him very much when those that have association with Krishna, like residents in Dwarka, and they see in a limited way, not in an unlimited way, Krishna's nature. They saw his opulence because it's Dwarka, like Purushottam Krishna. He shows all of his opulences. All the demigods, this is Uddhava. All the demigods from the upper, lower, and middle universal planetary systems assembled at the altar of the Rajasuya sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhishthira. After seeing the beautiful bodily features of Lord Krishna, they all contemplated that he was the ultimate dexterous creation of Brahma, the creator of human beings. It pained him. He's not the creation of Brahma. Although they saw his beauty, they saw it that way. The damsels of Raja, after pastimes of laughter, humor, and exchanges of glances, were anguished when Krishna left them. They used to follow him with their eyes, and thus they sat down with stunned intelligence and could not finish their household duties. He is describing the kind of affection that different personalities have for Krishna. And he's an observer of those because he's an intelligent person, discriminating this and that and the other. The personality of Godhead, the all-compassionate controller of both the spiritual and material creations, is unborn. But when there is friction between his peaceful devotees and persons who are in the material modes of nature, he takes birth just like fire, accompanied by the Mahatattva. Then comes this puzzling section. When I think of Lord Krishna, how he was born in the prison house of Vasudeva, although he is unborn, how he went away from his father's protection to Braja and lived there incognito out of fear of the enemy, and how, although unlimitedly powerful, he fled from Mathura in fear. All these bewildering incidents give me distress, Now the distress is an ecstatic distress. It's a particular kind of bhava. It's one of the symptoms of one who has premas. They feel distress, not like we feel distress. That he acted as if he was an ordinary person. He took birth in a prison house. He ran from Mathura. This is, when Kalyavana was chasing him, and when Jarasandha was chasing him, and he ran from Mathura. It gives me too much distress. As if he's an ordinary person. Horrible. Lord Krishna begged pardon from his parents for his and Balaram's inability to serve their feet due to being away from home. Because of great fear of Kamsa, he said, "O mother, O father, please excuse us for this inability. All this behavior of the Lord gives me pain at heart." And part of the pain is when people read it, they think, yeah, just see, he's an ordinary person. No, too much pain. No, he's not ordinary. But he would do things that would allow the materialistic people to think ordinary thoughts about him. Who, after smelling the dust of his lotus feet even once, could ever forget? Simply by expanding the leaves of his eyebrows, Krishna has given the death blow to those who are burdening the earth. He is asked to talk about Krishna, and this is Uddhava's heart, talking about Krishna. You have personally seen how the king of Chedi, Shishupal, achieved success in yoga practice, although he hated Lord Krishna. Even the actual yogis aspire after such success with great interest by performing their various practices. Who can tolerate separation from him? That's his heart. Krishna's left, and I'm not going to see him again in this lifetime. Too painful. Certainly, others who were fighters on the battlefield of Kurukshetra were purified by the onslaught of Arjuna's arrows, and while seeing the lotus-like face of Krishna, so pleasing to the eyes, they achieve the abode of the Lord. Lord Krishna is the Lord of all kinds of threes, and explains what all kinds of threes means. He and is independently supreme by achievement of all kinds of fortune. He is worshipped by the eternal maintainers of the creation, who offer him the paraphernalia of worship by touching their millions of helmets to his feet. Therefore, O Vidura, does it not pain us, his servitors, when we remember that he, Lord Krishna, used to stand before King Ugrasena, who is sitting on the royal throne, and used to submit explanation before him, saying, "My Lord, please let it be known to you." Pain is acting like it's rasa, it's lila, but he has a very strong feeling of love for the Lord in majesty, while he recognizes the sweetness aspect of his loving exchanges. His heart has that kind of orientation, and he's disclosing all this. Imagine, it's hard to imagine, having the understanding of Krishna that he had in observing his pastimes. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, being prayed to by Brahma to bring welfare to the earth, was begotten by Vasudeva in the womb of his wife Devaki in the prison of the king of Bhoja. Thereafter his father, so now he's going to go through Krishna's entire Braja Leela, and then his departure from Braj to Mathura, his activities in Mathura, because he knew all of them, he was with him. And then his leaving Mathura, is going to Dwarka. He goes through the whole Krishna book. just reciting from his first-hand experience with all of his deep and profound feelings. This is remembrance, Vishnu Smaranam or Krishna Smaranam, in a most exalted manner. So what about us? So how do we become? How do we receive things like this? Well, we're in the kingdom of the kingdom of Maya, where it's the dark age of Kali, and we want this brilliant as the sun, Srimad Bhagavatam, where one can one can see, one can remember, one can, because palpably he is experiencing Krishna's association through remembrance. It's not the same, and at the same time it's the same. He's feeling Krishna's presence. And we have forgotten Krishna, and by hearing these very same topic from the very same source that Shukadeva Goswami is narrating, what Uddhava said to Vidura and so forth, the same thing happened to Maharaj Parikshit and to Shukadeva Goswami. They were in touch with Krishna. The same thing can happen to us just by hearing. So I see a nice Srimad Bhagavatam set on your shelf up here. Yes? So, like the deity form of the Lord, like the holy name form of the Lord, this is the literary form of the Lord. It's what the Chicago Temple is doing month by month, going through, in a summary way at least, chapter by chapter. So it's a meditation on the form of Krishna through sound. Exactly what Vidura and Maitreya are doing, Vidura and Uddhava are doing. And we're getting transported, at least the potency is there to transport us to that same place. It may take a while because we're covered and it's very dark in this dark age, but the potency is there to carry us from the material to the spiritual plane, just by sound vibration and remembrance, gradually reawakening remembrance of Krishna. Now, our experience of Krishna's pastimes is not going to be the same as Uddhava, because he was personally present. And his experience of those pastimes is going to be a little bit different than other people who saw the same, or were present at the same pastimes. But his love for Krishna is very, very contagious. I find very inspiring. So much love for Krishna. And he's able to speak simply because he wants to be of service to Vidura, who is himself a great soul. We're in really good company when we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam. What to speak of when you read Srimad Bhagavatam with others, as I understand a lot of what our congregations, at least, here, probably all around the world, are doing during these COVID times, is we can't get together at the temple, so we're getting together around the messages of Srimad Bhagavatam and other of the transcendental literature that Prabhupada has provided us. And that way, getting our Krishna Katha or Hari Katha and becoming nourished. Okay, so it's 6:17. Time went by fast, huh? We started at 5:30. So let's see if there's some discussion. We'll, because this is for the members that are attending the Sunday program, we'll give special attention to those who send something in online. And then, the remote questions first, and then we'll go back and forth within the room. Do we have any online questions? None. Okay. Those of you that have questions who are viewing this live stream, then you can send your questions in. And for now, we'll start with if there's anybody in the room that would like to discuss some points.
Guru Maharaj, the level of Uddhava was so high.
Yes.
It on one hand it inspires, and on the other hand, I'm also thinking like there is no way to reach that stage for me.
You don't have to reach that stage.
So that was my question.
Take his association. Hang on to his dhoti.
So going back to the spiritual world is possible even without going to.
This is the same question you asked after my departure last time.
Yeah.
Yes, the answer that hasn't changed since then. We have to become qualified, however long that takes. Become qualified. And in this one time, it's meant for that, yes. Is it possible? Yes. Effort and mercy, go for it. Anything here? Okay. Well, we may have a short class. That's fine with me. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much for that presentation. And I'd like to invite, if there was a closing statement or primary takeaway, if you want to share with everyone. Otherwise...
Well, I thought, the takeaway is read Srimad Bhagavatam and be transported from this dark age to the brilliant as the sun opportunity provided by our founder Acharya and all the predecessor Acharyas and Shukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit and all those great souls. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And next Sunday, the feast keynote will also be given by His Holiness Romapada Swami, but it'll be a very special treat of an initiation Sunday feast. So stay tuned. It'll be a fantastic and memorable event. And if not sooner, see you all next Sunday. Hare Krishna.